So this is gonna be a different video than usual. Christian Link, the spearheading showrunner that brought us all the wonderful masterpiece that is Arcane, has been in the thick of it in the community these days. There's a lot of valid discussion and information right now, and I came into the situation with a pretty closed mind, but the overall discussion is very important to Arcane's climate, and I think everyone here should be familiar with it. For those of you who haven't watched Arcane's behind the scenes Bridging the Rift, Arcane was a passion project that Christian was pitching to Riot basically a million times over the good part of a decade. As the patron saint of Arcane, there's an immense level of respect that the community shows him. The internet is the internet and people complain for all sorts of reasons, but valid criticism is valid criticism. I'm fortunate enough to receive so many varied opinions and feedback for the minuscule ant that I am, but it's specifically your responses that help me grow as a creator. I share that respect back to those who made Arcane because well thought out criticism is fundamental for growth. For any newcomers to the situation, it's important to balance our appreciation and gratitude towards Christian alongside a certain aptitude towards pointing out flaws, whether that be directed at Arcane itself, Christian's contributions, comments, or reactions. The gist of the situation is that mostly on Twitter people are uniting and throwing hate for a multitude of reasons, whether that be from the JayVik fans, the lack of Vi, or general season 2 discussion as a whole. First off, Christian confirmed that there is a director's cut of the Kate Vi fun scene. They couldn't include it for time, pacing, and tone purposes, and it would change the rating of Arcane to be mature. However, they are considering releasing it, so if you are watching, please sign the change.org petition to give Riot some pressure. The bulk of all the hate has been due to Christian's comments about Jace and Victor, saying they had no romance, and then doubling down on the statements online and fighting the shippers. Now that's when I found out about the situation on Reddit, and I assumed it was just ungrateful Arcane Twitter being Arcane Twitter and shippers being insane. There's a lot to this, and no one here send hate to anyone because that's not going to be helpful. So let's start off with Christian saying that Jace and Victor are not gay. I actually completely agree with that take. See, Christian is coming at this as a writer, and narratively Jace and Victor are not written to be gay. Jace went freaky with Mel, they called each other brothers, and I never got any hints of gayness. That does not mean you can't perceive them as gay. Christian Link isn't the sole creator of Arcane. It's possible, even likely, that the other writers included romantic undertones. Maybe the voice actors got a little heated in their recordings, and Fortiche definitely fluffed the relationship between the two. Christian stated that they tend to give Fortiche a lot of freedom with how they animate scenes, so it wouldn't surprise me if the talented Fortichers added a little extra friskiness to their dynamic. If you think Jace and Victor are gay, then that's just your interpretation of how the voice actors' animation and other writers wrote the scene. That takeaway is just as valid as mine. But from Christian's macro-level writing perspective, I'm 100% in agreement that Jace and Victor are not fundamentally written to have anything going on. When it comes to these sorts of discussions, it comes from the narrative comprehension level. I think how Christian argues how Jace and Victor aren't gay is coming from their dynamic as partners and brothers, and that is the core of their relationship and development. A lot of pushback is coming from how people are forcing their opinion onto the series, so any counter to that seems like Christian is forcing his viewpoint onto us. Obviously, not everyone who wants JayVik is doing that, but Christian's responses have been towards those he perceives as forcing their narrative onto him. And he argues that within the big picture writing, the two are platonic. But again, that's just a minute aspect of Arcane's overall storytelling. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say that he was just clarifying the intended direction on his end. It is messy how he conveyed that thought, and I can see how it is seen as taking away other people's fun. I interviewed some people who have taken offense to this, with one person saying, Christian Link has had a distaste for JayVik as a ship for as long as Arcane has been on air. He's a heavy advocate for Jace and Victor being strictly platonic. Normally, this would have been okay, since as a writer, he most absolutely had the intentions to keep Jace Victor's interactions platonic. However, it became an issue when he began to retaliate against said JayVik shippers who do interpret their interactions and dialogue as romantic. Instead of acknowledging his fanbase's interpretation of the characters, he decides to message these users with a backhanded tone, most of these being seemingly unprovoked. I'm not going to share the deleted messages, but it's just him replying bluntly to people questioning him. I have to admit, if you read through a million comments on the same stuff, then it's natural for some of the replies to be rude. Not an excuse, just an explanation. Then everything exploded when Christian defended his stance on Jace Victor and said that Victor was asexual. This would be great for representation, but I don't think I ever saw him publicly speak out about this aspect of Victor. From what I've seen, it was only through Reddit and Twitter in response to shipping in order to shut down their argument. This made a lot of people see this as offensive. A large reason why the ace community take offense to this is because it's possible to be asexual but still romantic, and that being ace is not a counter to shipping. So just arguing that he's being a bit ignorant. I want to know how I'm not too knowledgeable about the subject, so here's someone in the ace community. I personally am disgusted by the fact that my label is being weaponized simply because Link dislikes a ship, not that he actually cared about representing us properly. Plus, Victor becoming a numb, robotic monster-esque thing really doesn't look good since the whole emotionless ace stereotype. It's possible Christian made that statement in ignorance, but that's not for me to say. I don't think he's completely in the wrong either, since his narrative interpretation never had any inkling of romantic or sexual chemistry between the two. He also really wanted to portray that ace dynamic carefully and ask other asexual rioters for advice. But the way this has come off does seem combative. A lot of people are calling him homophobic, which I do see as bad faith. Obviously, Christian is not homophobic, and that label takes away from actual homophobes, but I do get how people are so offended from his statements. The community discourse on Twitter has always been messy, and I do agree that he should take a step back. Engaging with your community is important, but I feel a lot of real criticism is mixed in with the million other Arcane complaints that, for the most part, aren't well thought out, and it's easy to make a blunder. We all love Arcane and want to see our headcanons play out, but please don't take things too far or assume Christian Link has the worst intentions. Yes, I do agree that on spaces such as YouTube or Reddit, we ignore Twitter criticism because all they do is complain, but certain viewpoints are important and should definitely be considered for future discourse. On the other hand, I don't think people should completely vilify Christian and assume his worst intentions, since that's never helpful to anything. It's good that the ace community is voicing their frustrations in representation and misrepresentation, and I'm sure the showrunners are listening to all the feedback to have better portrayals of all sorts of characters in the future. The next piece of business is how Christian said that the writers wanted to focus on the other characters other than Vi, and people took that to mean that they got bored of her and started sending hate. I agree that Vi could have used more screen time, but there's a lot to read in between the lines for her, and unfortunately her roles were just on the chopping block. I think this was a byproduct of the pacing issue instead of the writers specifically being bored, since there were a lot they could do with the emo arc. Vi still went through significant growth because after thinking she lost her sister at the end, she chose to remember what she had and continue living a happy life instead of punishing herself. That was the character arc for her, just a shame we didn't get that much focus on it. Other than that specifically, it's just other general season 2 hate, which has been mostly unnecessary and hollow. He has responded to some of this discourse on Reddit and talked about how there's always going to be constraints in showrunning. I think this point is bad that they had to juggle a million things, since parallel dimensions and time travel was super unnecessary in the story and stale in the medium. I think we should be grateful that he is so communicative and frequently responds to online comments. Alex Yee is hiding in the basement letting Christian lightning rod everything, and that image is just funny in my head. Overall, I do want to stress that even though Christian has done a lot for Riot and Arcane, that doesn't mean we should deify him and put him above criticism like some parts of the community. But the opposite is even more true, and it's distasteful to jump on him and assume the worst without any complexity. Communication is paramount in creating and enjoying a show as good as Arcane, and we should be glad we have the other side there to share a passion in. I think Christian made a really good point here. Even though there is a lot of hate, what would be worse is no one caring at all. I don't want to talk about drama that much, but I have covered Arcane news before, and I feel bad that Christian has taken up the role to shovel all the radioactive fallout from how Season 2 ended. Show him some love and your appreciation that we have Arcane, and at the very least, please don't send hate. It's my first time doing one of these videos as well, so if I made a mistake or I have some bad takes, then please reach out to me and discuss your concerns. I learned a lot from interviewing those disappointed in Christian's actions and changed my viewpoints considerably, so everything I say is coming from someone trying to learn more about the situation and helping you all engage with the community. With that, I'll catch you guys in the next one.